Have you ever wondered if it's worth learning how to drive when you're in the Philippines? Well, friends, let's break it down and get into some of the facts and figures and find out if we really should take our time to learn how to drive or maybe just invest in hiring a driver for your adventures. First off, the traffic is insane. I don't mean bad. I don't mean terrible. I mean insane. To put it into perspective, if you've ever been in rush hour in downtown LA with a traffic jam in a rainstorm, that gives you a bit of an idea of what traffic's like in, say, the Manila area on a good day. Take 3 lanes of traffic, all headed the same direction, and put 4 lanes of vehicles in it, and then for every car, you're going to throw in 4 or 5 motorcycles that don't care what lane they're driving in. Traffic control devices, don't waste your time. Nobody's going to pay attention to them anyways. Merging, exiting, and changing lanes, it's a thing for nightmares. Or it's an amazing experience and something that you might want to partake in yourself if you're kind of the adventurer or you just have a death wish. Next, let's talk about trying to navigate through the roads here in Metro Manila. If you are lucky enough to find a street sign, maybe you'll be lucky enough that the writing on it is still legible. More often than not, there are no signs, and when there are signs, everything's starting to peel off and the names don't mean a whole lot of anything. Or you'll be driving down a street and then all of a sudden somebody has decided to put a light post right in the middle of the road, or they've built a new building right there where a road used to be. So you find yourself zigzagging around neighborhoods just trying to get from point A to point B, but you have to go to point C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K before you get there. If you've never driven in the Philippines, the best way to think about it is the way the roads in Europe are laid out, where you have circles around the town centers that continue to expand outward as the population density grows. Well, here in the Philippines, you had that same basic circle mentality, but there's a lot of additional structures that have impeded the roadways. And in addition to those structures, you now have private neighborhoods as well. And in a private neighborhood, they can put a gate up across the road and block your entry. Now, if you're willing to pay, 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 pesos, you can navigate through some of these private neighborhoods and save yourself some time. But it's not going to save a lot of time. The congestion here is real. For example, where I live here in Caloocan, which is just north of Metro Manila, my family and I headed up to a stevia farm, which is only about 15 miles away from us, also farther north, so getting outside of town into more of a provincial area, meaning less traffic, less density. Well, it took us an hour and a half to get there. And again, that was on a good day. Once you get out of your town, then you can get onto these express highways, which will bypass a lot of the communities and save a ton of time if you're willing to pay for it. But you have to get to the highways in the first place, and that means getting out of your neighborhood, which sometimes walking can be faster. So if that hasn't scared you enough, let's talk about kind of the obvious elephant in the room. Being a foreigner while driving in the Philippines, I kind of stand out like a sore thumb around here. I'm a small guy, but my complexion makes it very obvious I'm not from around here, which sadly also makes you a target in certain areas. Now, I've never personally experienced this, but I have heard horror stories of foreigners being targeted for intentional accidents so that they can be pressed for on-the-spot fees in order to be able to drive away. Meaning somebody's going to run into you and then they're going to extort cash from you in exchange for not calling the police. Again, it's never happened to me before, but I do have friends here that say they've experienced it, and I can only take it at face value. Now, about a decade ago, when my father-in-law was driving us around, we were pulled over for what seemed like a potential routine traffic stop. I don't think it was a signaling issue. I don't think he broke any laws, but we were targeted. We were pulled over by a local police officer, and as soon as they saw me in the back seat of the car, the tone completely changed. The traffic enforcement officer had a polite and friendly conversation with my father-in-law, slid his ticket book to my father-in-law, who in turn added in a little bit of a thank you, and we were allowed to go along our way. Is this a common practice? I'll let you decide, but from my experience, it's more common than not. So be well aware that if you are driving here in the Philippines, you are a target, and it could potentially cost you a little bit of money or maybe a little bit of damage to your vehicle. Let's talk about just some more basic things. Do you want a car? Do you want a van? Or do you want a motorcycle? Now, if you're in an area and you're just by yourself, or maybe it's just you and one other person, a motorbike is a great way of getting around town a lot more efficiently and a lot cheaper. The motorbikes don't have coding issues, meaning there's certain times you can and can't drive them on the road like a car. The motorbike can go anywhere, anytime, as long as it's a high enough CC, meaning engine size, to get onto certain roads. If you're staying off of the highways, then the smaller the scooter, the better, because it's going to be a lot easier to navigate through some of these zigzag roads. Now, on the vehicles themselves, if you're like my family and you travel in giant herds, which is pretty common for Filipinos, they don't like to do anything on their own. So whenever we go out, there's generally 6, 7, sometimes 8 of us, which means we need a big van to carry the whole group. And that means you're going to have to pay for parking, you're going to have to pay for a lot of fuel, and obviously the vehicle itself. If that doesn't scare you away, then more power to you. Get a vehicle, just make sure you've got a safe place to secure it at night, because it will get broken into. Let's look at the flip side of this. Even if you do own your own vehicle, you may not want to drive it yourself. You might find that hiring a driver for the day makes a lot more sense. Think of it as being chauffeured around in luxury. Somebody's going to drop you at the doorstep of wherever you're going. When you're ready to be picked up, they're going to be right there to grab your bags, help you into the vehicle, and off to the next adventure. If you do have your own vehicle and you want to hire a driver for the day rate drivers can range, again, we're talking Metro Manila or Caloocan area, but a day rate driver is going to be anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 pesos per day. Now, if you don't want to do the math, I'll do it for you. Based off of today's exchange rate of USDs to Philippine pesos, it's 55 pesos per USD, meaning 1,000 pesos is going to be about $18. That's right, for $18, you're going to have a driver with you the entire day. Now again, that's an 8 to 10 hour day. If you're taking longer trips or larger destinations, then you're going to pay a little bit more because, well, you're going to have the driver with you a lot longer. Now there are some additional expenses that come along with hiring a driver for the day. You do need to make sure you provide meals and breaks. So anytime you stop for food, plan on also having the driver either join you for a meal or supply a meal for the driver while they wait for you in the vehicle. More often than not, the gentlemen that drive for my family and I are like family themselves. So they accompany us to our destinations. They join in the events and the fun. They sit with us during our meals, and we love having them there. It does tend to cost you a few extra dollars when you add in additional meals, but again, $18 a day for a driver plus maybe $5 or $10 for food, and you've got somebody to take all the stress and troubles away from you. Now, you can add in some additional expenses. For example, today we went up to Subic Bay, which is, let's say, roughly 140 or 145 kilometers from where I'm at. So roughly 90 to 95 miles. We left at 4:30 in the morning and we didn't get back until 8:30 at night. It was a long day. And our driver is a rock star. He was here early in the morning to make sure that we got the car loaded up, got us to our destination. We had a quick breakfast with all of us, and then he went his separate ways. My family and I went down to the beach and we had a great afternoon. He picked us up periodically and took us to our different destinations, and then made sure we got home safely at the end of the day when everybody was exhausted, sunburnt, and had a wonderful day. And there was no stress of dealing with parking, dealing with stopping at the gas stations, figuring out the right toll roads, or even figuring out our route to get where we're going. Well worth the money. But at the end of the day, that's going to be your decision. Does it make sense to have a professional driver with you full time, or do you just hire somebody on a day rate? We like to just hire on a day rate. If we're running around town, we've got our own vehicle, we'll take that risk. Now, if you have a full-time driver, there are some additional perks that come with that. When you hire a full-time employee as a driver, they're also going to help you out with other projects too, meaning helping carry furniture, carrying groceries, making sure grandma gets in and out of the car safely, all the wonderful things that come along with having additional hands. Hiring a day driver, well, you're going to have some different challenges there as well, because you're not necessarily going to have the same person every time. We have 2 or 3 gentlemen that we work with, so we know them, they know us, and again, they're part of the family. So I ask you again, is it worth learning how to drive in the Philippines, or should you just pay somebody to take the stresses off? For me personally, I want to learn how to drive here just so that I can have my independence, and that's the American spirit in me, and I just can't seem to get rid of it. But man, do I love being chauffeured around and pampered in luxury for just a few bucks a day.